Good morning, everybody. It's me, Anne Marie. You can call me Anne Marie, the Art of Healing, or I am currently moving into Anne Marie Morales, Hypnotherapy and Intuitive Arts. I am coming on today because I feel compelled to talk about what's happening here in the United States, the tragedy, the loss of life, the destruction. And I need to talk to all of you. Well, because it's my role. It's my role as a spiritual counselor. It's my role as somebody who has done some spiritual and emotional work. And actually as somebody who's a part of this whole situation. If you are in my community, you have an understanding that we have been controlled and manipulated our entire lives. Yes, we have been controlled and manipulated for eons and centuries. I just saw 111. That's wonderful. We have been controlled and manipulated by non-human entities that feed off of us. They use our life force energy as food, okay? So let us look around us. Let's look, we all know about it. We all know about cabal. We all know about these kind of rulers of the planet. Now, my last two videos have been very, very specific. My guidance in the first video was the Rock Collective by themselves, before the hurricane hit us here. The second video that I did, the last video that I did, was both Jesus and the Rock Collective, talking about what our responsibility is now. So I'm going to talk a little bit more and a little bit straightforward with you, because I think this community needs it. Now, please receive this with the highest of intentions. I first want to say, we must feel our emotions. I am not denying anyone their human emotions of sadness, of tragedy, of grief. You freaking cat. Now I've got crazy cat again. Crazy cat number 2. We have to feel our authentic emotions. If we don't, we bury them inside and they fester. This is what I've learned. This is through the hypnotherapy, and this is what my job is to help us unbury all these trapped emotions that have caused us problems over our entire lifetimes. So I want to preface everything by saying we are human beings. We experience emotion. We need to experience emotion. I have wept. I have cried, okay? Because the human tragedy around me is profound. Just profound, okay? At the same time, however, once the authentic emotion is released, we flow into something else. We flow into anger. We go through the stages of grief, okay? We flow into anger. We flow into denial. We flow into all these other emotions, energies in motion, that if you are a spiritual student, you will know that they are not in our service, that they are actually tied to our egos. Our egos are the part of us that is attached to our human body, that doesn't like change, that likes a fight, that engages us in activities that keep us a little bit in the low, okay? Keeps us in the low. If you are a spiritual student, you recognize that, you understand that, and you avoid going into the ego. So listen, we all have egos. We're going to have egos until we don't, until we leave. Until we leave the planet, we're going to have an ego. So what do? All right, you identify the ego. You identify the ego and say, okay, I see that my ego mind is taking over a little bit here. The ego mind is what's going to tell you the government did this. Look at the government. It's their fault. The controllers, it's their fault. Weather manipulation. And you'll be exactly right. Okay. So talking about the United States in particular, the global former controllers. Now understand, these controllers are on the way out. There's nothing stopping ascension, right? We know that ascension is happening. It's going to happen. What we need to determine is where we're going. We need to determine, are we going to New Earth? And that's each and every one of us. Are we going to New Earth, or are we staying in the 3D? That's up to us. It's called free will. Okay, that's what we have. We have free will. The global controllers for years have been creating their food source, which we know is loosh, okay, which is our human emotion, our human energy, which we are focusing in emotion and anger and ego and thrill and fear, all of these low frequency emotions that we carry within us, that we have, and that we've been trained to really like. That's why Hollywood has made all these scary movies. Why? Because they sit there, these lower dimensional, non-corporeal beings sit there in the freaking movie theaters and eat up our fear because it's their food. So what they've been doing for centuries on the little level and on a big level is manipulate our emotions through fear, sorrow, suffering, shock, to keep us in a low frequency so we don't realize and we don't use our free will, intelligent choice, spiritual choice, or our spiritual self, that we're using this ego self, this lower frequency self, dare I say the reptilian mind, to operate out of. So why? I'm going to ask you this really simply. If you know that these world controllers have been creating war everywhere else on the planet, they've just been generating a freaking war in Ukraine and Russia, human suffering, what they're doing in Palestine and Israel, human suffering. Now listen, you don't think the Israeli government has to do with this? You don't think the Palestinian controllers has to do with this? They all have to do with that. They're complicit because they're a part of the plan. They're a part of this group. In the United States of America, where there's a hell of a lot of people, okay, and where we're having a very important election, how can they manipulate us and put us in fear? They manipulated the weather. And they did a great job, didn't they? The entire Gulf Coast of Florida, all the way up into Georgia, and oh my goodness, into this idyllic little community of Asheville, North Carolina, where they managed to create such rains that 3 dams and 3 reservoirs flooded, wiping out entire towns. That, oh my goodness, could there be some sort of mineral deposit up in those mountains that they couldn't get to before? Listen, we've seen it. It's in their playbook. We saw it with Lahaina. And we're seeing it here again. Now, please, again, I am not unaware of the human tragedy, okay? And we are humans. If we didn't get washed away, we're meant to be here. And I offer you also that each and every soul knows when it's going. There is a higher plan that we are not aware of at this moment, because we're here in this density. We're here in these corporeal bodies, doing what we can, the best we can, okay? So what am I offering to you? I'm offering you, number one, that we should know better. We should know better, and we should not get so angry. We are only angry because they came to our doorstep. And I went through this in 9/11. And in 9/11, I had one of the most profound spiritual experiences. And this is long before I was awakened to metaphysics and universal energy, etc. Long before. I was angry at God at 9/11 because those people that died in God's name. Why? Because the drivers of the plane said, Allahu Akbar, God is great, and bam, into the building, causing the tragedy of 9/11. I didn't know any better at the time, right? And I told God, and I used to have little conversations with God all the time. I didn't know I was channeling, but I knew I had I just saw 11:11. Thank you for this. I knew that I had a special connection, and I asked God. I was fucking angry. I was like, these people were just like me, normal human beings going to make their family better, working hard to support their family, and you let this happen. And God put me in my place, because after I was yelling at God, I got angry at God, and then like 2 weeks went by and he didn't answer me. And I was doing the boys' beds. I remember this distinctly, and I was like, God, you never answered me, and you usually answer me pretty quickly. And at that time, after 9/11, we were learning about the Taliban and how they destroy their women, how they take their women with the black and cover their faces and castrate them and doing these all awful things. Don't let them be educated. And the voice that spoke in my head said, how do you think I feel about my daughters over there? So it made me think, wait a minute, number one, we're all equal in the eyes of God. A tragedy across the planet is the same as a tragedy over here. Doesn't make us special in any way. All right, so now if I'm looking at that comment through the lens of any lens, really, what makes us more special in the United States that the cabal is not going to generate a war and bring it to our doorstep? Well, they didn't generate a war. They generated a natural event. They generated this weather system that did the exact same thing. Videos in our hands, in our devices, right in our faces. We're experiencing it live. I'm guilty of it. I took video of my street. I'm taking video of the flooding behind my house. I'm doing it. All right? I'm doing it. I'm in it. Why? Because I'm a freaking human, and this is awful. All right? But am I angry? Am I blaming? I'm trying not to be. I'm doing what I can. I'm advocating with my county. But I'm not getting into the anger of it. I'm not getting into the awfulness of it. We have to understand the whole point of why this is happening. Okay, why is this happening? Because they need our loosh. They need our anger. They need our vile, our hate, our disgust, our shock, our sorrow. They need that to live because they've been abandoned. And the only way to control us is if we go into these fight or flight emotions. Please, my beautiful community of truthers out there, my spiritual community, you already understand this, but my truther community, I don't know. All right? Please take it from a different perspective. Technically, if we didn't have these communication devices, you and I would never know what's going on anywhere else in the world. We'd only know what's happening around us. What's happening around me is awful. I get it. But we have to look at every kind of cog in this machine, every cog. And part of the cogs is this, and it's positive and negative, right? Just saw 15:15. So listen, what I'm saying is please try to pull back and look at everything from a higher perspective. If you weren't washed away, give thanks. If your home was washed away but you're alive, give thanks. If you are nowhere near the destruction, give thanks. Be grateful and be thankful for everything. Oh, baby. Good baby. She's just running around. Give thanks that we have kittens to entertain us. Give thanks that we have spouses and loved ones to love. And get out of the loosh frequency and into the love frequency. Continue to share whatever it is you feel called to share, but just be aware of your own personal frequency. Be aware of your own personal pointing of fingers. We know this. We know this. This is a page from their playbook. Let's not give them what they want. Let's not give them what they want. Let's be human and be resilient and be strong and rebuild. And my friends, this is tragic. And I'm sitting here in a house that was not touched. All my shit is still here, okay? But when I left New York, I did the same thing. I put everything on the curb. I had 4 stories in my house, and I only had half of a moving truck that came with me. I know what it's like to release your possessions. All those cute little things that I collected my whole life. Brand new beds and mattresses and furniture, solid, good furniture, leather couches. I get it. I get it. I had to release all of that that tied me, my ego, to my possessions, especially my house. My house was like an incredible home, historical, 100 years old, Tiffany stained glass windows. Man, I walked into that place and I loved it. Don't get me wrong. I've been there. Okay, I've been there. But at the end of the day, it made me ill. And one of my great lessons was, you are not your possessions. You are you. You are your soul. Everything still dwells and begins and ends within you. All right. I'm done. I hope this makes sense. Share it wide. Share it with your friends. It's important to remember that this is what they want from us. Don't feed it to them. Don't feed it to them. Don't feed the shock, the hurt, the tragedy, the anger. We must understand that everything in one way or another is in perfect order. And according to A Course in Miracles, we don't know what anything is for. We truly don't. We may think we do, but we don't. We are all part of a higher plan of which we are unaware. So what is it that we ourselves truly can control? We ourselves can only truly control us. Our emotions, our frequency, our desires. These are events that are created, just like 9/11, just like every single war, an event that is created to manipulate the collective mind of humanity. We are greater than that. We are better than that. And for those of you who've stayed to the end and you're like, what the hell is Anne-Marie talking about? I'm sorry. I'll have a conversation with you later. Talk to me. I love you all. This is Anne-Marie. Be well, be blessed, remain in gratitude, and look forward to the new earth that we are creating through our hard work. We are the pillar holders. We are the foundation. Don't forget that. I love you. Bye.